It's my honor to join you today for the ribbon cutting of the EOD History Path. This path represents a significant milestone in honoring the history, legacy, and sacrifices of our EOD warriors. I'd like to mention a few people in attendance. Thank you, Captain Douglas Alley, Commanding Officer of the Naval School Explosive Ordnance Disposal, his command team and staff for their invaluable support. I want to also extend our gratitude to the community leaders representing the Okaloosa Board of County Commissioners, the Niceville Valparaiso Chamber of Commerce, Niceville's Mayor Dan Hinkle, and welcome 5th District Commissioner Mel Ponder and our friends in the Chamber. Welcome all. And finally, special thanks to the EOD Women's Leadership Summit participants. Glad you're able to make it out. The EOD Master Blasters are being represented today, the Navy EOD Association Emerald Coast, our active duty, Guard, Reserve, retired, and veteran community, their families and friends. Thank you for being here. Welcome all. Behind me you see the EOD Memorial Wall. This wall honors those EOD technicians who gave their lives in the performance of their duties. The 344 names on the wall date back to the formation of EOD in World War II. The basic structure consists of 4 cenotaphs, one for each branch of military service: Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force. A bronze tablet with the names of our fallen EOD warriors is inscribed and attached to each cenotaph. Each year on this first Saturday in May, we return to this wall to honor and remember our fallen heroes on National EOD Day. We remember. And now, I'm honored to introduce Greg Mittelman, our chairman of the board of directors at the EOD Warrior Foundation. I'll invite Greg to come up and share with you the inception and making of the EOD History Path. Please join me in welcoming Greg Mittelman.
All right, I hope you all can hear me well. Thank you all for being here. It's incredibly hot and humid. We are in Florida. This dry heat, hot, wet heat nonsense, they don't know what they're talking about in Vegas. This is hot. So I will keep my remarks short, but there are some things that I think are significant that I'd like to share with you. First off, let me say how important that history is to us in EOD. For those of you who are visiting us, history started with the very beginnings of EOD, and the importance of it was that when somebody went down to work on an unexploded piece of ordnance, they would essentially holler back to a second back behind him on what he was doing. I'm turning this fuse right, I'm turning this fuse left, whatever they may be doing. And somebody was up there documenting it, okay? And that's so the folks down the road would know if that device blew up, they would know what not to do the next time. That's sort of it in a nutshell, how history starts with us at the very simplest way. And over time, it becomes more important because we need to learn all of our legacies, our best practices, so that when we go somewhere, we do something, it's always with everything in mind behind us that we've done right and done wrong. So we've always tried to encapsulate that. Well, that goes with the legacy and the pride of who we are as EOD as well. So the memorial we all know about, we all cherish, we respect, and we honor it the first Saturday in May every year. And just a few years ago, we built the Remembrance Garden over here. The purpose of the Remembrance Garden was for all the other techs and the families and friends that have a place to go and honor them, techs past, present, and future. And when we built that, we made a little path, this little gray stone path. And what I said at the time is this path represents the life of an EOD tech, between all the EOD techs over there and the memorial here. And it has some little bends in it because life as an EOD tech and anybody else truly is never a straight line. There's always little twists, there's turns, there's challenges, and that's what those little wiggles sort of represented. And we did that for a reason. And I'm going to go back in time a little bit. I'm going to go back to a bad time, and that's in 2011. The EOD Memorial Foundation at that time, prior to the merger that created the Warrior Foundation, was faced with the challenge of the realization that too many names were being added to this memorial, and they were no longer going to fit. How do we get around that? Well, what we did was take down the cenotaphs that are up there, each tablet for each service, and we made the name tapes on there somewhat smaller, but they contain the same information, and rebuilt the memorial. So since that time, we've had those cenotaphs in storage by the good graces of the folks at Nav School EOD across the street, and tried to decide what we could do with those. And the problem was that nobody would help us, because what we wanted to do was keep those tablets here on these grounds that are sacred to us. So what could we do? Could we melt them down because they're bronze and make a bell and present it to the school or something else. But nobody would do it for us because of the contaminants, or what they perceived as potential contaminants, since they didn't make that metal, would damage their smells. So we sat on these tablets for a long time not knowing what to do with them, other than dig a hole and bury them out here, because we weren't throwing them away. Well, in 2016, Nicole Motzik and I talked a little bit, and we made a presentation to the board, and our co-chairperson at the time of the Memorial Committee, and I'm going to introduce Kelly a little bit more in just a minute, and some other folks. But the board got together and agreed that, hey, that's not a bad idea, that maybe we need a history out here. And we decided that we're going to use those tablets to do it. Okay, now fast forward 8 years later, almost. Because back in 2008, there's another key player who unfortunately is not here. His name is Brian Kastner, a former Air Force captain turned author. Wrote a book called The Long Walk about his own trials and tribulations with post-traumatic stress. And I called him and I said, Brian, we need somebody to write a history. And it's got to be short, it's got to be succinct, but it's got to tell the story. Would you be interested? He said, yes. I'll get back with you. Crickets, right? 8 years later, last fall, we sat down and put our heads together and said, it's time. Let's make this happen. And we hoped to get it done in time for the memorial, and that just didn't work. But essentially what happened, we came up with a plan. We contacted Brian. We contacted retired Sergeant Major Mike Vining. Mike is a historian for the National EOD Association, as well as a historian for us. He's the one, along with a group of other folks, that does the research for the names of the dead from Korea, World War II, and Vietnam that they find weren't recognized, or their documents were lost, and so their names get added later on through the good work that Mike does. So we asked Mike, would you write this historical approach with these guidelines? And Brian, would you add the prose to make this worthy of reading? And they agreed, and they were well into it, so we had that little bit of significance down. We had to work underway. And so then from that point, we decided, okay, so how do we tie these in, these tablets? So what you're going to see when you go out here is that you're going to see some cement pedestals, and you'll see plaques. And there'll be 3 of them on one side that tell the story of EOD. They tell the story in a simplistic way because you can only do that with 3 tablets of 390 words the max each. But they tell the story of EOD from the start to today, recognizing the eras and the changes in technology and what that did to us as a career field. So it's there for EOD techs to look at, to remember. It's there for the young kids graduating across the street. It's for their families that come and just learned how to spell EOD the other day because their loved one graduated from the school and got their crap. So they can go through there and they can look and they can read and they can understand about what it is their child is getting into. So that's sort of the nature of the history. Across the path there'll be one more, and that's the history of the EOD Memorial and the Remembrance Garden. The 4th tablet is in there. So what we did, we took each individual cenotaph, laid it down on top of the pedestal, bolted it in, and then each plaque is mounted inside of the cenotaph. So you'll see a bronze ribbon around the outside edge of every one of those. So we kept those home. Very important to us. I would tell you also that some of the original names that were left from the original cenotaphs are buried inside those pedestals because those weren't able to be delivered in most cases, in any cases, to families or other people and disputes and things like that. So anything that's been generated from this memorial has been kept here on these grounds as a part of the history and the culture of who we are. With that, let me say that my sweaty little note here, because it was in my pocket, I want to recognize Nicole Motzik, our former executive director, for all the work she did to make this happen. I want to recognize Kelly Perry, who's the chairperson of our EOD Memorial Committee on the board of directors. And she has a very pretty young lady with her, her granddaughter Elliot, who will be up in just a minute. I want to point out JT Crocker, who's going to hide now. JT's standing over here. JT, since he's been with us, has become Daddy Rabbit for the EOD Memorial. all the care and feeding that goes on here at the Remembrance Garden. And JT was out here throughout the entire process of planning, of writing, of the construction, hands-on. And I don't doubt, Skipper, turn the other way, I wouldn't be surprised if he camped out here one night or two to make sure things got done to get it completed. Mike Vining and Brian Kastner are not able to be with us, but that's the core, apart from the people who did the actual construction on the path and the pedestals, which are the same people that did the Remembrance Garden. The support of them was invaluable, the support of the community, the people that helped us, all of you that came out here and are becoming more and more a part of our community and knowledgeable about who we are. We thank you very much. I will realize later there are probably many more things I want to say. The last one I want to say is we don't do anything out here without the full and complete partnership of Nav School EOD. Dean's out here, a former commander that we worked with many years ago. Captain Alley is here today. Thank both of you all, especially today. And I'm going to be put Captain on the spot and ask him to join us. Nicole, Kelly, Elliot, and JT, and Captain, if you would, come on up here. I'd like all of you all to come up and help me pull down this ribbon, and I'll be quiet, and then we can all walk through and look at this handiwork. Thank you all for being here today.